Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator and author for tonight. So first I'm going to introduce Maria Hicks-Few, Deputy Human Rights Director of the Human Rights Department for the City of Greensboro. Now, some of you know me, and I do introductions a little differently. So I asked the authors 3 questions, and so here are their answers. What is Maria's favorite book? Good to Great, Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't, by James C. Collin. What is one thing that people do not know about Maria? She is an author. She wrote a book called Cocoon to Butterfly, the story of a warrior. And I brought my butterfly. Yes. And if Maria could go back in a time machine and give advice to her 21-year-old self, what would she say? Take advantage of your communication skills, continue to network, and engage with people even more. So Maria, why don't you come on up? Now it's my pleasure to introduce Kendra Adachi and ask her the same 3 questions. So what is Kendra's favorite book? She says she doesn't think she can ever say what is her favorite book of all time. But a solid answer is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Most of her recent favorite is The Hike by Drew Morgary. Okay. What's one thing that people don't know about Kendra? She's never eaten at a Taco Bell. Yes. And if Kendra could go back in a time machine, and what piece of advice would she give to her 21-year-old self? Advice is to be kinder to myself, and also it's okay to never have eaten a Taco Bell. Thank you, Beth. Everybody, come on. Hey, aw, yeah, hi. Okay, this is your show. Do your thing now.
So Beth, what you do? Okay, now I'm back on. Am I on? Yeah. Can everybody hear me? Hello, hello, hello. And first off, I'm mad at myself. I didn't even say my own book was my favorite book. That means I'm not vain, so I love it. I love it. I love it. Hi again, Kim.
Hello, Maria.
We are fast friends.
We are.
Said, and where are we going to lunch now?
Oh, we haven't decided yet, but it will happen. It's very exciting.
No.
Oh, right now we're deciding?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Taco Bell.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely. I walked into that, but no, we're not. Sorry.
All right, we'll do a version of Taco Bell. How about that? Okay. So, what I thought, because Kendra is such a dynamic speaker, she's actually already spoken to a group of employees here at the City of Greensboro a few years ago. So I said, well, let me come up with some interesting questions that I knew you all would definitely, hopefully want to hear from this amazing author. So I kind of categorized the questions I'm going to ask into the core of your book and what message you were trying to bring with the core. Also, some practical questions so we can take these learnings and these little tidbits you give us and kind of make sure they're given in our daily lives on a daily basis. Some of your personal thoughts and insights, not only as an author, but as a wonderful human being, and also a deeper dive, which will lead us into our Q&A session. Is that all right with everybody? Perfect. All right, so let's get into it. So, the plan, because I've read both. I've read Lazy Genius and I've read The Plan. Tell us about, since the plan is about managing life like a lazy genius, can you explain for those who may have just started the book or hopefully, are going to read the book, hint, if they have not already, because they're in the back of the room, by the way. If you could explain what that means. What is it about?
What a lazy genius is.
Yes.
And so, okay, you don't have to be weird. Does anyone have no idea who I am? Thank you. Love it. Okay, here we go. So a lazy genius is someone, I'm looking right at her. A lazy genius is someone who is genius about the things that matter to you and lazy about the things that don't. Because you can't care about everything. You just can't. It's impossible for one person to do that. But the beautiful thing is that you can choose what matters to you based on the season of life you're in. And you can go, I do care about this thing, and I want to put my genius energy into this thing. And this other thing, I can't right now. And I'm going to be lazy about that. And that can look lots of different ways. It can mean that you just spend less time, like the quality of whatever it is lower. It could be that you delegate it to someone else. It could just be that you don't do it right now. So being a lazy genius is trying to help us prioritize in a way that is life-giving rather than like we're just hustling and behind all the time.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what inspired you to write this book? And how does it build on the Lazy Genius premise?
So The Lazy Genius Way is the first book I wrote. Anybody read that one? Yeah, look at that. So The Lazy Genius Way is 13 principles that help you figure out how to manage what you need to manage. I just looked at my mom and then I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I can't look at you anymore. That's just the new rule. Sorry, it's weird. Okay. So, okay, go back. So The Lazy Genius Way is 13 principles that help you do this, to figure out how to be a genius about what matters to you. And some of them are super practical. Like a favorite is decide once, which is you just make one decision one time about one thing, and then you let it ride until it doesn't really work anymore.
Okay. I'm gonna stand while I answer my question. This is so sorry, it's fine. I have a cold, my throat is bad, so I'm gonna try to be loud. The plan is meant to help us have a more sort of comprehensive system of how we can organize our time, but, and I'm not gonna beat your questions because I bet the question's coming, but we have a couple of like obstacles in the way of that happening. And so the plan really, rather than being like a plan, even though it's called a plan, rather than it being like a fully like this is what you do, it really is like a way to see, it's kind of a paradigm shift about what time management really is, and what it can be for people who are a little tired from how it's usually presented. So the plan was like, we need to talk about time management specifically, not just like how to handle things in the moment a little bit more.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So as far as your premise of productivity versus rigidness and versus system,
Yes.
how does the book address that? Because I know, dealing with me and my crazy life, and I have some friends in the room that know I have a very crazy life, sometimes that urge to be rigid comes in. So how do you speak to that? And especially, how did you speak to that in the book?
Yes. So here's the problem with a lot of the time management things that we are given and why it feels like it's rigid. It's because it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is rigid. The idea that is set up most often and historically is, okay, imagine what you want your life to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, okay? And you're gonna identify that in some way with lists or in the front pages of a planner or whatever it is. And then you are going to break down the goals that get you to that place. And you are going to make those goals kind of smaller and reverse engineer your way to that. So what do I need to do today to lead to this? Now listen, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if you have a future goal, that's kind of how you get there, is you break it down into small steps and move forward. The difference is there is an assumption that we all want to live like that everything is in service of this invisible future.
Right.
While some of us are like, I can't think about that right now. I got enough right here. Today is plenty. Today has enough. There's also this idea that is perpetuated by that build a reverse engineer for the future, that if you spend today not in service to that future, if somehow you don't do the small steps of the goals that you said, or whatever it is, you didn't mark off all the little bubbles in your planner to move you in that direction, then today was a waste. Mm-hmm. Because every day is supposed to build on itself to this future. And I'm just here to say, I don't think that has to be true. I don't think that has to be true. I think there's another way. So that's what the plan is. It's the other way.
So now I'm gonna give a whammy to what you just said.
Oh, I love a whammy.
I know you do. You're from Greensboro.
We love whammy. We love whammy.
What if a life hiccup comes
Yeah.
in the middle of all of this?
How about when?
When
Life
you
hiccup
have
comes.
a sick parent,
Yeah.
a child that's going through some issues in school,
Totally.
death in family.
Yeah.
How do you handle that when the hiccup comes?
Yeah. See, that's why I love the plan. Because life hiccups don't really fit in the figure out the future and reverse engineer the things and make it work. Hiccups don't fit in there. And so you're the one left holding the hiccup and you feel unsettled because your life is not working the way that you had it set up to. And so what I love about I'm trying to think of like how much of the structure I sort of want to present. But the idea of the plan is an acronym and it's a pyramid. Are you gonna ask me about that later?
Look beside you. Oh my gosh, you made one! I was gonna say, I did some
I didn't even notice. What is happening? Can I keep this?
I did not make that. Someone on our team did.
Can I keep it? I'm putting you on the spot for that. But okay, here we go.
And yes,
Ready?
that question will move it up.
Okay, good. We'll move that because this is kind of how you handle hiccups. So the bottom of this, it doesn't have a label, but the bottom of this pyramid, this is a planned pyramid. The bottom of it is what matters most in the season of life that you are in right now. Not what do you want your future to look like in 20 years. Where are you right now and what matters right now? That's what we're making decisions based on. That's the foundation here, okay? Then we have these 3 triangles. Do you see how they're the same size and they're leaning on each other in equal measure? It's not tilting, right? And those words are prepare, the P in plan, adjust, the A in plan, and notice, the N in plan. And then the point of all of it, both metaphorically and actually, on top of this, is to live, the L in plan. Because that's the whole point. Because we're trying to just live our lives, right? We're trying to do them in a fulfilling way, in a whole way, in a way that brings satisfaction. Hi, Nancy. My neighbor's here, too. Good to see you. Okay, so what we have, the reason we have so much rigidity and why we can't handle hiccups is because most of the time management industry focuses on this side. They just talk about how to prepare. And guess what? If you don't know that something's coming, you have not prepared for it. There are also people in this room, I guarantee, who are like, I'm going to anticipate literally everything that might come and prepare for it, and then you're exhausted and none of it even happens. Or if one of the things does happen, it doesn't matter because you're too tired to handle it anyway because you've been preparing too much. So this is where it's all focused, and this is not enough. This is not enough. We need to also adjust when a hiccup comes. And we go, well, that thing I prepared didn't really work because of this thing that happened. That is life, and that's normal and fine. So we're gonna make an adjustment. Or, I don't know that a hiccup is coming necessarily, like a big one, but I am noticing that my son Ben, I have 3 kids, and Ben is 13. Oh my gosh, yeah. Ben is 13, and Ben is a delightful child with very big feelings. And you can see Ben's feelings all over his face. It's pretty fantastic. He's been that way since he came out of the womb. And so it is actually a really lovely thing. Like if I'm thinking, okay, after school when everybody gets home, we're gonna load up in the car and we gotta run these errands because this is important and we prepare for this to happen. But if Ben walks in the door and I notice Ben does not have it in him to immediately get in the car and go and do all these things. Now, I don't necessarily have to change what I have prepared logistically. You know, sometimes you still have to do the thing. But do you know what I can do? I can go up to Ben and go, dude, I can tell you've had a hard day. And he's like, yes. And I can acknowledge that with him. And I can go, okay, well, I had the plan. I had prepared that we were going to do these things. But I'm noticing you're a little out of it. Is there something we can do to make that easier for you so it's not quite as, you know, or he's old enough he can stay at home. It doesn't matter. But like when he was little. So all that to say, this is why I love the planned pyramid, because it actually celebrates hiccups and things that you don't anticipate, because that's what life is. Life is constantly filled with things that we don't expect. So rather than being thrown by them at every turn and feeling guilty that we can't fit them into this perfectly constructed plan that we've made, why not actually have an actual structure that can support things that we don't anticipate and we can still live. We don't feel like we're, drowning in it. It's just part of life.
What if you have difficulty with a bin in your life
Yeah.
not adjusting at the pace that's needed?
Oh.
What do you do with that, according to the plan?
What do you do when you cannot make adjustments according to the pace of other people in your life? That is one of the most common questions I get.
Oh, no.
It is. What do you do when something that matters to you doesn't matter to someone that you know very well? What happens if you have made all these preparations, and even though you're trying to be equal in your attention to adjusting and noticing, you're the one who prepares the most, and no one else seems to honor the fact that you've prepared these things, and then they don't do it, right? And then you're like left annoyed. So Maria and I were talking before this about how what I talk about, honestly, is a hard sell because it's not easy. Like, I'm trying to help us be more human and present and communicate with people, because my answer to you is you communicate with the people. And most of us are like, it's too much work. Or it's hard, or it's scary, or you don't know how they're going to respond, or you're too tired to have a conversation where you feel like you're soft enough to say it without hurting someone else's feelings, or you feel like you're being too sensitive, or maybe it is a relationship with a partner or a kid or a parent or a boss or a neighbor or whatever, where they don't want to talk to you about it. Like, they don't. It doesn't matter how kind and soft you are or direct or whatever. They're not interested. And so, spoiler, being a person is really hard. It's really hard. There's no, like, you do this one thing, it's going to change your life. No, that's not true. That's just not true. If I ever give you a book or a podcast episode or anything that's like, these 3 things will make everything better forever, stop listening to me or call the police because I've been kidnapped. That is not how life works. It's not how life works. So my answer to that is not a very fun answer. It's like, you communicate with the person. You work together. And the biggest reason for that is because we operate out of what matters most to us. We all do. I hope you do. I hope you feel more freedom to do that. And I would guarantee that for everybody in this room, in a lot of your scenarios, what matters most to you in that moment is some form of connection. It's connection with yourself, that you feel like you're still staying true to who you are. It's connection with the person that you're talking to. Maybe it's a spiritual connection from your faith. Like, there are lots of things that you are prioritizing connection, not getting your stuff done. I don't ever want us to sacrifice our humanity and the humanity of other people on the altar of productivity. I don't think this should ever happen. I don't think that should ever happen. I just saw a girl who doesn't know who I am make a face at that line. I think I got her. I think she's in now. I think she's totally in now. Yeah, I saw her. I got her now.
She's amazing.
Yeah, I've got her now.
She's a president of the fan.
That's right. That's right.
So, and I was going to ask the question before we started going into that,
Yeah.
but I think you just addressed it, but I want to make sure that it's clear to the audience. What is a common mistake people make when they are trying to create or fulfill their life plan?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it communication?
Well, I don't know. I think even the phrasing of that question, which is a question that everybody would be like, yes, what is it? We love, y'all, we have been trained to love words like most,
Yes.
best, fastest. We love those words. Because then what you can do is if you're like, well, if I do that thing, everything's fine. Nope, that's not how it goes either. So I don't know that there is a most thing, a thing that gets in the way the most, but I think a fairly common one when you're thinking about, like, how do I want to live my life, is that we just start really big. In the industry, I already explained that you start with what do you want your life to look like down here, and that's enormous. Like, my mom is here. I'm 43. 43. I'm 43. And if you had asked me when I was 23, what do you want your life to look like in 20 years? Heaven help us all. I hope that is not this. I know that. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. So I think it's just too much for us to even expect that these big things that we can imagine down the road are even going to happen. Now, am I saying that you can't have big dreams? Of course not. If there's something in you and you're like, oh, I really hope that happens. I really want that to happen for me. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. But like, you don't have to force that energy into your life if you're like, here's good. This is good. What I'm doing here is good. So I think we start too big. I think we start big with the planning. I think we start big with, y'all, I'm not used to wearing hoop earrings, and I keep catching my fingers in them, so hopefully I will not rip my earlobe today. That was a gross image, sorry. We start too big when, okay, today's January 31st. Let's pretend it's been the longest month ever. Oh my gosh. Let's pretend it's January 1st, and we're like, January! And how many of you are like, clean out the closet, new planner, color coding your Google Calendar, there's a chore chart coming, everybody hold fast. Like, there are all these big systems, you're laughing, it's true. There are all these big systems that we start that, are they happening now? She's like, hey, some of them are. Which is actually awesome. But what we do is we think that when something is not working well, that we need to throw a huge solution at it, and we start over. I call it big black trash bag energy. You know what that? Imagine what that is. So you do it physically in your house, where you're like, I feel sorry for all the children, because you're like, get your stuff or it's going in the trash. And it's so aggressive. But we also do that with like intangible things. Right. We do that with our calendars. We do that with sometimes our jobs. You know, we're like, I'm so frustrated. I'm quitting. I'm out. I can't anymore. Because we're expecting, because we're looking at it through the lens of this is a really big problem. And guess what big problems require? Big solutions. So that's why one of the 13 Lazy Genius principles is to start small. Because that actually like kind of works. It's annoying. It's so annoying. I always say she's the most annoying of all the principles. Like I hate her so much, but also I love her because she saves me. Start small saves me from throwing everything out at once. But it doesn't feel like we're just getting enough. I tell a story in the Lazy Genius Way about how so when I was in college, it's like how quick do I want to make this story? When I was in college, I didn't like to act like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to be a beginner ever. And so I went to the gym that I'd never been to the gym before ever. And I went to the college gym, and the dude who I was checking in or whatever for the first time, and he said, so let me show you around, let me show you how the machines work. And I was like, I know how the machines work. Okay, I'm good. The only machine I could figure out was the leg press machine. So I did the leg press machine every day until I couldn't anymore. And then I had trouble sitting down. And then I had trouble, I would be like crisscross applesauce on the floor, and I couldn't get up again. My mom had seen this. I would be lying there, and I'm like, I literally can't get up. My hips aren't working anymore. And I went to see a doctor, who does like bone things. And they did a scan or something, and he said, well, you have the joints of a 70-year-old woman. This is when I was 18 years old. And I was like, that seems like not great. And so I have glass knees, basically. They're not made of glass, that's like a metaphor. But I have like very pitiful knees and hips because I didn't ask for help at the gym 25 years ago. My point is, because of that, it's really important for me to keep my joints moving, but I can't do things like run and do like press machines or whatever. And so I thought, well, I need to do yoga. That would be really helpful for me, and I would love to do that. So if I do yoga, like, I want to do it. It matters to me. What if I do yoga like 20 minutes a day, 2 or 3 times a week? We've all said that before. Did I do it? No. Did I get the cute tank top? Yes. Did I get the blocks? Yes. Did I get a new mat? Of course I did. I did all those things. And I did not do any yoga. I did no yoga. No yoga.
It sounded good.
It sounded great.
Look good.
But what I did, but then when I was like, wait a minute, I have to start embarrassingly small. Like embarrassingly small. And what that was is you're gonna do one down dog every day. That's it. Y'all, that, I'm in a dress, so I'm not gonna do it right now. But that's like hands, feet, butt in the air, and you're done. That's it. And it felt ridiculously small. And yet, I would do that, and then I might do a sun salutation. And then, y'all, I did yoga, but I still do yoga, for like years, every day, with that tiny, embarrassingly small thing. So I feel like we have been sold a lie that big systems will save us. They will not. Small steps might not save you, but they will definitely save you from a lot of heartache.
So
If you
what
start
about the perfectionists
Yeah.
in that picture?
Yes.
What if you are, oh, did I hit a nerve? Okay, front row. Wait, oh, I'm calling somebody else. Hey, they have blue hat on. Yeah. But I'm there with you, I get it. We both raised our hand with Google and January, okay. So that, going back, perfectionists. How do you actually coach the perfectionists with this book to make sure that if they are a perfectionist and they don't get the plan correct, even with a small step, that they don't feel stuck?
I send them to a therapist. That is what I do. And also, because perfectionists think that there is a right way to do it.
Yeah.
There's not.
Right.
There are very few things in this life there's a right way to do it. Especially, there are even fewer that there's one right way to do it. So we gotta let go of that.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways, and perfect doesn't matter. Perfect is that greatness lens that we're taught. If you put on this lens and you're like, well, everything, I haven't talked about that yet. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked about that. So the thing is, the productivity industry, they do say like, hey, imagine this thing, reverse engineer your way there. Cool. What they also tell you, directly and indirectly, it's like implicit, it's in the water, it's in the commercials that you watch during the Super Bowl, that what you are aiming for is greatness. It is leveling up, it's most, best, it's all of those words. That everything is like 10x your life. And I'm like, I would like to not. I'm good, thank you. But that's not really allowed. The energy of saying, you know what, I'm content with what I have. I'm content with who I am. I'm content right here in this moment. Now, I might want to like try some new things, or, you know, I want to grow as a person. I'm going to go to therapy. Like, contentment is not complacency. It's not settling. It's very different. But if you say you're content, you kind of get a look like, are you not paying attention to what's going on? Like, it almost feels like that's not a choice we're allowed to have, to be content. And so that idea of like there's a right and a wrong way to do things is a greatness lens. It's you have to do things exactly the way it is set up in order to be successful and to 10x and do all the things. And I'm just like, no, you don't. I mean, if you want to be great by that definition, then yeah, you do. But I just think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of us are like, I just want to be kind. I just want to be a person with the people around me. I want to do work that matters to me and I want to do it well. But like, if I mess up at something, or if someone who works for me messes up at something, like even if it feels like everything's crashing down, we can still work through it. We can still talk about it. We can figure this out. Or, you know, like if you, I remember it was one of the first questions, I get questions like this all the time on Instagram and emails and stuff like that, but it was years ago. And it was the first one that made me go, oh golly, was a woman, she said, so my family, we used to eat dinner together every night at 6 o'clock, but now my boys are in sports and we're not home until 8 o'clock. And I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. And I was like, girl, nothing. They're in sports. You're not doing anything wrong. Eat at a different, this is not the season for eating dinner together at 6 o'clock. And that's okay. That's just life. That's what happens. You adjust, right? You adjust. You make an adjustment to when you connect as a family. You make an adjustment to how you make dinner. You just make adjustments. You notice what people need. You make adjustments, and then that does change how you prepare over time. But really, ultimately, you're living. Like, that's what living is. So, yeah.
No, thank you. And it's so ironic, I think I didn't realize I changed my Facebook cover until you said that. And I changed it after I finished reading the book. And my Facebook cover, I wasn't being rude, y'all, by the way. I was looking for my Facebook cover. But what I put right after I finished reading the book, I'm at the point in my life where I just want my family happy, my faith strong, my health good, my mind right, and I have to say this, and my dollars up. It's the cutest little thing, it really is. But I really think once I figured out my adjustment of where I needed to be at this stage, 10 years older than you at 53, that's what's important to me.
That's what matters to you.
And that's what matters to me.
That's
and that perfectionism that I used to have, that we were laughing at, it kind of not goes away, but you look at things differently.
Yeah.
So now I want to shift a little bit, since I kind of let them know a little about me.
Yes.
Let's go back to you with your personal. When was that moment when you decided, wow, I need a new approach to doing things, and you really, really started thinking about the premises for these books? When did that happen?
When I had children, I think. My oldest, now you can learn things about your life without having children, but that's what I have learned. That's what's helped me learn things. I went into, I talk about how the lazy genius, it kind of looks like it's like a spectrum, sort of, that a lot of times we are trying to be a genius at everything. You know, we're trying to be great, we're trying to nail it. And then when we realize that's unsustainable, we swing the other way, especially for the women and perhaps mothers in here. You swing the other way and you're like, screw it, I can't, I don't care. That's what I call like, messy hair, don't care. There's nothing wrong with having messy hair and not caring about it. But we have used that as a badge of honor for some sort of like, well, at least I'm not trying really hard like she is. There's this sort of conflation of if you are trying, then you are almost pretending. You're almost lying because you like think you have it all together. And so our response to that is to swing the farther way and be like, I don't care. My house is a disaster. Welcome in. Now listen, you can have a house that's a disaster. It doesn't matter. That is irrelevant to this. But what we have done is we have equated like laziness for the sake of like, I'm not trying, as some sort of fake vulnerability. We've equated those two things, that messiness equals vulnerability, and that being together equals being fake. And neither of those things are true. Neither of those things are true. So but I was hardcore genius. Again, my mother is here, she knows that. I was a hardcore genius, she can vouch. I was a hardcore genius for so long. And then I had my first kid, and I was like, I'm gonna be the best mama ever. I'm gonna make all of his food. He's gonna sleep like a champ because I'm gonna do all the right things. That child did not sleep for longer than 15 minutes at a time until he was 18 months old every night. I don't know how he survived it. And he's still kind of that way. He's just all the time. So anyway, I was like, well, I can't do it all. I can't do it all great. So I guess we'll give up. And I had my second kid, and I don't even remember the first 2 years of his life. Poor Dan. I feel so bad for him. He's the one who would want the memories the most, and I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I don't know. I don't remember anything. So we do, but we just swing back and forth, and I'm like, no, hey, there is a very wide middle between those two things. Thank you for coming. She waved. Thank you. And so. Wait, what was your question? Oh yeah, what was the thing that made me realize? It was, I was here, and then I swung here, and I went, both of those suck. Right. I can't do either of those things. Because over here, I actually care. There's a lot of things I really care about. It actually matters a lot to me for my house to be tidy. I love my house to be tidy. It makes me feel happy. I like it. But it doesn't mean that I'm like controlling and pretending. It just means that matters to me. It can matter to you. Just like cooking homemade food every day can matter to you. It doesn't matter if someone else has a different choice than you. It doesn't make yours better or worse than theirs. We all get to choose. But having children was what made me go like, oh, neither of those options is sustainable. Right. So we need something different.
So now fast forward to 2025 right now.
Yes.
What do you still struggle with as a lazy genius?
Oh.
And with the plan?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I think is noticing. I'm very good at preparing. I love preparing. preparing. I actually guarantee, I think that every person in here is really naturally good at one of these three things. Everybody is. Everybody is. But if you're not good at preparing, and you probably say that you're not good at planning, or you're not very organized, you are. We just have a broader definition of what that means here. So you actually are. They're all equally necessary. But if you are a preparer, then you probably are praised for being good at organization. You're called upon in a crisis, or to be the president of the band booster club. I'm very good at it. Okay, I would say I still really struggle a lot with noticing. It's something I'm actively cultivating because I move too fast to notice. I don't know if you've noticed here, I haven't even sat down. I can't, like now that I'm up, I'm like, I prefer it here. I prefer standing to sitting. I talk fast. I'm kind of loud sometimes, depending on how comfortable I am in a room. I can fill it pretty quickly. And sometimes that's great. And sometimes that makes it really difficult for me to notice other people there. So I cultivate slowing down in my speech and in my body, in my decision making, my responses, like taking a breath before I'm like diving in. Because sometimes a lot of beauty can happen in that little amount of space between a kid doing something boneheaded, and that I take a beat and go, sorry, it's okay. So yeah, that's the thing I'm trying to cultivate more of.
Okay. When everyone rereads the plan who read it, because everybody will after tonight, and those who haven't, reads the book and they want to take an immediate action.
Yeah.
What would be the first thing you would suggest that they do when they dive into the book?
Yeah. Well, so a couple of questions, or a couple of answers to that. The book, some of you have it. It's divided into 3 sections. The first section explains this pyramid in detail. There's principles that go with each of these letters. And it also goes into a little bit about how 93% of time management books are written by men and how 70 to 90% of them are read by women. And that is a problem. And so it's not that the dudes are not saying good things. It's that the resources that we have are incomplete. They're just incomplete. So that first part is kind of setting up that whole thing. It's sort of a paradigm shifter a little bit to go, oh, I don't have to be great at everything all the time? Really? And it's the reason that I think the problem is me is because all these dudes are setting out these systems and then I try to make them work and then they don't and I feel like I'm the problem because the system seems to be fine. It's really freeing. So that's part 1. And then part 2 is some strategies. Like there are chapters on like planning a day, planning a week, planning a season, like literally helping you think through how you might approach different parts of time. I can't think of what that's called. And then part 3 is pep talks. If you are drowning, if you came to this event because you're like, oh no, it's a time management lady. This seems like what I need right now. Then what I would say to you is to actually look at the table of contents of the pep talks in the back and pick one that feels like what you need right now. And just start there. Like you don't have to read the whole book. Read one pep talk, man. You can do it before you leave. I also think a way to kind of, basically all of it is start small. Please start small and whatever you choose. 2 other, one practical, one mental kind of tips or whatever. One is, I need you to stop putting projects on your to-do list. I need you to stop putting full-on, multi-step things as one. You cannot write, pick up clothes from the dry cleaner and like plan family vacation next to each other. Planning a family vacation is a project. You probably wrote on your to-do list back in November, buy Christmas gifts or buy holiday gifts. Friends, no. It's enormous. That's too big. So that's like a very simple kind of hack is when you're looking at your to-do list, because here's the thing, I think our to-do lists rise to the level of difficulty of the hardest thing on them. We don't know that really, but then we look at it and we're like, oh, this feels so hard. And it's because you have, move houses or get a new job or move your mother into a retirement home. Like these things are massive things next to pick up bananas. You can't do that. Because then you look at bananas and you're like, bananas. So that's one practical thing. And then another sort of like mental thing is, and this is actually the greatest way that I have cultivated noticing is, and I have this in the book as a principle, and I say it in my episodes all the time, and it is this: good is here right now. Good is here right now. No matter what you're going through, there's good happening. There's something. There is something. Even if the only goodness is that you are being kind to yourself in a really difficult season, that is still good. And so when we get overwhelmed because we feel helpless and we feel hopeless and we feel like we don't know how to begin or end or get out of this thing. We just feel like we're drowning. And so this mantra of good is here right now, to me, it's like a buoy in the water. It's like, this is hopeful. This is something that I can hold on to in a season that's really, really hard. And we've all been in them. Some of you might be in one right now where it's like, this is a really hard season. And I don't think this is ever going to end. And that can feel very depleting and defeating. And so just a little burst of air in that deflated raft. I have lots of raft and buoy analogies apparently now, is to say, good is here right now. And if you can't automatically name what it is, just look. What good thing is happening right now? Even if it's like, I'm just seeing this precious baby walking around. Yeah, you're good. Keep walking. Take care of your baby. I was not a tiny baby season mom. I did not like it at all. And yet, the good of like that little head right there is so sweet. Even though I'm like, this is awful and I'm never gonna have my time or my body back again. But that little moment of like, this is really good though. This is sweet, this is good. Those are life-giving things. So good is here right now. Don't put projects in your to-do list, and good is here right now.
Especially bananas.
Especially bananas. Right. Simplify the bananas.
Season was the best for me, as we talked about. The season really helped to prioritize for me.
Yes.
So, since there are some people who haven't read both books,
Yes.
Either or, which would you say prioritize? Read one before the other, or is there a prioritization?
That's a great question. If you're drowning, I think read Way. I think read Lazy Genius Way. Because can I see it? Okay. This is an OG.
Yeah.
This is a first printing.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, and she does not have a New York Times deal.
Yeah.
Hi,
Baby.
Hi, man! You got it. You're legit. Oh, I signed it.
Oh, yeah.
Did I think that before? I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was better dressed.
Okay.
Bare minimum today.
If you are drowning, it's amazing. If you are drowning this way, because the principles you could read, if you just, again, the principles, the 13 of them. Oh my gosh, where's the table of contents? So many more. Okay. So like, decide once, start small, ask the magic question, live in the season, build the right routines. Even if you're like, my season sucks, you can just read the chapter, live in your season, and receive hope and do nothing else. Right? So if you're just like, I don't even know where to begin, I would say begin here. If you are managing a lot, you're not really drowning, but you're like, you're keeping everyone else from drowning, then I would replan. Because that's more, and there are other options than those two things, obviously. But I think people who are drawn to time management conversations, you got a lot to do. You got a lot going on, or you have a lot that you care about, or you have a lot of people that you're taking care of, or that are depending upon you, right? So I think if that's the case, if you're like, I'm just managing so much and I don't know where to put it all, then I think the plan is a better book to start with.
Okay.
Yes.
So, our last question, then we're gonna open it up for the
Yes.
audience.
Yes.
What's next? Can you give us a sneak?
For me?
peek? Of course.
Oh,
Is there a book on the horizon?
Well,
The plan to?
the plan too. I am going to write another book. I am, which I'm very excited about. I don't quite know what it fully is yet, and I might get in trouble if I try to say it before I know that, or before a contract is actually signed, because that's not yet. It's only verbal. But I do. That will be for a couple years. But we have. I have a podcast called the Lazy Genius Podcast. It has episodes that come out every Monday. And they're me doing this, but a little more organized, and about very specific topics. So it's helpful to look at the titles of the episodes, and you'll pretty much know right away, like, is this for me? And you can listen to whatever is for you, because not everything is for everybody. I don't expect anyone in here to listen to every single episode I've ever made. That's ridiculous. So I'm going to keep making that. And then we also created, which I'm super excited about, we created these things called playbooks, which are, I wish I had one with me, but you don't have one in your bag.
I don't, but I love it. I do love mine.
They're, because so much, I can tell, she is a plant. I paid her to be here. No, because so much of our time, our planning works better when we plan smaller and when we're paying attention to the season that we're in. Planners themselves aren't necessarily set up for that, because we need to make decisions about like what matters right now in these 3 months or whatever it is. And so the playbooks are a companion to whatever planning tool you already use. So whether it's Planner, Google Calendar, iCal, doesn't matter. And so those are being printed right now. We sold out of our first run way sooner than we expected, which was a great problem to have. And so those should be available in April. So my whole thing, from a business standpoint, it's the same thing as that sort of greatness lens. When you run a business, I don't know if anybody in here owns business, but when you run a business, or even your job, it doesn't really matter. There is an expectation, and it's understandable, that you're going to keep leveling up. And you're going to keep doing the next thing, and what's the next thing, and what's the next thing. And sometimes there doesn't have to be a next thing. Like I told my team this year when we had our first meeting in January, and they were like, cast vision for us, Kendra. And I was like, cool. And I said, I want us to keep doing what we're already doing really well. That's all. Let's just do what we're doing well. We don't need to keep adding things. It's okay. This is good. So we're content here. So there is another book coming, but not for like 2 years probably.
But the podcast is available.
Yes, wherever you
listen to podcasts.
Okay. Love it.